So, hi Matthias, your Tech 11 company begins to be famous. So, at the latest AirHacks in Munich, there was one guy from Italy, and I just mentioned Tech 11, and he told, "Hey, I know them. He already chatted with you. Are you doing actually well?"
Yeah, yes, it's going good. Yes, and for also we try to grow a little bit in a more international, so things are going good.
So
Everything
it's
well.
international. What do you mean? So you are expanding from Germany to where?
Yeah, from a business point of view, also one of our next country could be Italy. We have some details, some plans, maybe in the middle of the year to found a subsidiary in Italy.
This is actually great news. And why Italy? So you have lots of clients in Italy. Also, what's the point?
No, not clients. It's an investment more or less, but we are providing insurance software, and Italy is a very interesting market from a sales point of view for insurance.
Hey, cool. And so we already chatted, I don't know, a couple of episodes ago about your architecture, backend, and so forth. So you are doing progress. So are you still, satisfied with your choices, or how is doing your backend?
Our backend is it's good, but we have some changes, which from a technical point, which was a lot of effort. We created our application to have a pure MicroProfile client structure inside, because of our backend services provides always also a Java client. And doing this was a good approach, but from a build point of view, there was some challenges to implement the MicroProfile client everywhere. But so from a business point of view, working quite good. We are able to implement very fast new features. That's a good thing. But we try to implement also to have some side effects like open API, YAML files for the REST API generation and so on. And this is what we are focusing from a tech point of view.
So what you said by the MicroProfile clients, you mean the REST client? So you are using it right now, or you don't using it anymore?
We're using it at the moment because we have a set of microservices, and to provide our consumers a more friendly possibility to access, we have always a jar files for always a client jar file for all our microservices. And so we introduced the MicroProfile client to have this a bit more easy, to have also a clear structure with the API to decouple the API a little bit better from the backend entities.
Oh, so what you said is that before that you had just JAX-RS clients, so the microservices communicated with each other with JAX-RS client, and right now you switch to a type-safe interface, which is injected by MicroProfile REST client, right?
This was the first version exactly, but as a midterm step, we extracted some entity beans and built a jar file. Was not very clean, but we did a Maven hack, let me say, to extract only the entity beans to be type safe also on the client.
Because so you are using the entity beans twice, and probably you build a Maven plugin which searches for entity package and then exports everything. Right?
Exactly. This was first as an interim step, but now we have a clean MicroProfile REST client project. So this means our projects have it's a multi-POM. Our microservices are multi-POM projects. One module with a server and one with a client, and the client contains the interfaces for the MicroProfile REST client and the DTOs, and we integrate this into the server to be a bit more stable on the API.
And are the DTOs JSON-B object, and what are they?
Yeah, JSON-B object. Yes. This was also one of our progress that we migrated everything from Jackson to JSON-B. Sounds also more easy than it was in reality. There was some problem with JSON in the backend, so not everything worked.
So which problem was it with JSON?
For example, as a specification is absolutely right, but we used, for example, ordered. We have the ordered objects. So, and in JSON, so it's like a linked hash map, but this is not supported completely by JSON. So that you have always the same order. In the end, doesn't matter, but for some test cases, so we have to change our test cases, because before we expected, if we have some object with the keys, that it's always in the same order. And this was something which was different to Jackson.
So what you learned is always rely on standards, right?
Exactly, on the hardware.
Perfect. And how you deal with versioning? So what seems to me, if you have a multi-POM project, so it means the client is always going to be versioned together with the backend, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, and is it a problem for you? I mean, because what happens right now is if I would like to call one of your services, I will get from you a client jar, but this jar comes with a specific version. So I'm bound to the version. And then you upgrade the backend. So what happens with my client? So you will have to tell me, hey, Adam, please upgrade your client, right? Or you need a communication channel between the teams or between the micros. Okay.
Yes, but so in the first step, it's yes, we do so, but we have some checks if this version is different, just to log some warnings. So with the version is in the client and the server, and we follow from a versioning point of view, we follow the major minor patch level. So if we're doing right on a patch level, shouldn't matter. Also minor level, we only extend the API, so should work fine. And but this could become a problem if somebody is using a very old client with a new server. Yes, but then we have the warnings and yes, but
this only happens internally inside your service cloud or inside the cloud, right? This is just how your teams communicating with each other. Yeah. It's not like you're exposing this to the outside world, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly. The outside world use our standard REST client, but we orchestrate our microservices. Let me say it's more or less a SOA architecture with microservice technology. We have we have a BPM engine, and the BPM engine communicates with the microservices, and we're doing this via our clients. But on this level, also we doing also the customizing if some of our customers have some special requirements. We do this on this level, and this means on this customizing level, we're using our Java clients. But we are working here very, very close together always with the customer. So if we have some updates, normally the clients push us. So they would like to have a new client. So it's unusual situations that we have the latest server version and work with very old clients. Especially we're working for the insurance industry and doing core insurance. So it's not a mass business. So we will not have hundreds of clients.
So actually what you could do is you could provide something like, a version service where your client can just register a webhook, and you can notify the client that you are working on a new version or the next version is going to come soon, right?
So, sounds very good, yes.
Something like this, or So, or RSS feed or something like this, automated, so they can subscribe, from a reader, because this is hard to automate. They cannot just automatically pick the new version, but at least they get, notified that something happened. And you could use, I don't know how advanced your client are, but RSS feed would be a good start. This is what I did 10 years ago. But what you could do right now, Slack channel, whatever, they say, okay, if there's a new version, automate that. So it's okay. We Tech 11, released the version 1.1, so it is going to be in production in 3 months. This is if you have a good connection to the client, this could actually work well, right?
Sure, we have this good connections. This means also we meet us normally every 2 weeks, also physical, so and have a chat together and so on. So it's
okay.
So this is the communication is doing good because it's more important to produce good release notes because of the client trust, but the client is more interested in what are the features, should we do the update. So this is much more complicated to explain always the latest features in a way which is understandable for all participants.
Yeah, okay. And your decision to choose MicroProfile Jakarta is still right, or you say, okay, no, this was no huge problem because it looks easy at the beginning and then becomes to be hard. So you're still satisfied with the choice?
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy with the choice. But to be honest, I also have not experienced so deep experience. For example, if you're using the .NET stack or something else, I believe it would be also a choice which will work. But with JEE, we have no problems. Everything is fine. So I'm happy with this.
And what's about your developers? Are also happy?
Okay, we hire developers which are happy with the technology.
Okay.
I believe. So I would like to avoid to start this, let me say, discussion. Should we use Spring, .NET, some other framework? So if somebody is not happy with Jakarta EE or Java, then we are the wrong company.
No, but of course. But in a couple of days, I will meet another startup, and the guy just comes to me and always, says, it's incredible how performant the application servers are. It's like, they were never different. And he just loves, and because he had no further experience with Java, and now he is really happy. So this is funny to observe for me, that someone is that excited about the servers without any prior Java knowledge. This is why I'm asking you, is still going well or not? Just, okay. Yeah. And also funny, I mentioned Tech 11 in one of my, I think, Airhacks TV, and one of your developers said, irgendwie, like the best company ever. So I said, okay, I have to be so it's interesting. How big is your team right now?
In the meanwhile, we are 17 people.
17?
Still hiring. Yeah, it's 17. We try to grow. Yes, 17 people, and our idea is to grow up to 25 in the middle of the year.
Okay, and you mentioned that after the last show, an Airhacks TV show, you got some requests regarding the interview. Is it true?
Yeah, yes, it was quite cool, and we have now developers from Nigeria, Cameroon, and Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and they follow your show, so it's a great team we have here, but also some more people in Germany, of course, and I think also from Italy we have some requests, but sometimes the collaboration is not so easy, let me say. If you work with people from all over the world, you have to respect also the tax, the health insurance, how this is working, and this is sometimes a little bit complicated from an administrative point of view.
Okay.
But this is where we have to manage, and this is where we have sometimes, okay, even if we say the developer is a very good candidate, sometimes the administrative border are too high to manage. Is for us as a small company, and this depends.
Yeah. What's also funny at the latest Airhacks in Munich, the workshops, there was an attendee from Nigeria, but it was not one of your developers.
Yeah.
And the cool story is he came and he spent 16 hours in the airplane. But even more interesting, there was another guy, it was an architect from Sweden, from Finland. And he decided to come by train just as an experiment. And he spent 24 hours in the train. So actually, he was 8 hours faster than the guy from Nigeria, which is actually interesting, right? And
but for the Airhacks, two guys of my team joined also one of your Airhacks workshops in Munich. Was Tang from Vietnam, but he's located in Munich, and Joel. And they traveled by train, but from Würzburg, and this was also a nightmare to visit the airport at 9 a.m. in the morning. Even if it's by car, you need 2.5 hours. By train was a challenge to do this, to come to the airport in Munich.
Now remember, there was one guy who apologized, came late because there was some problem with the train at the day. So the train got redirected, and this was a shame. But the guy was pretty nice, actually. So did he like the workshops?
Yes. There was two guys, I think Joel and Tang, and they was very impressed. But of course, because it was a deeper understanding. Joel come with a little bit Spring background. That's the cool stuff that he's very it's cool. It's very productive what we are doing. And Tang was from Bamberg, but he's very happy with the stack and liked the show perfect. I think he had some discussion. He in the end of the show he said he had some discussion with you, and he forget to go to the train, and then he come also very late.
Okay. Okay, so I remember the guy from Bamberg, because if someone comes from Bamberg, I always ask the question whether he knows Schlenkerla, the beer from Bamberg. He's like, yes, okay, then you are from Bamberg. So it's cool. Exactly. So I'm really happy that actually is going that well, and I would even say it is. I thought a lot about your company. The funny stuff is we didn't met in person for 10 years, I guess. So I only know you from your developers and from the Airhacks, but I think, self-constraining for a technology could be a huge advantage, because this is actually also what I'm doing, because I was like, okay, now let's start without any dependencies. And then I'm forced, as okay, this is my choices and I have to choose one and go with it. So I spent less time, what's on horizon, which technology to choose. Is this technology going to disappear or not? So I don't have to go the whole investigation. And I had yesterday a workshop in a finance industry, and they told me exactly the same. They stick actually with Java and Jakarta now, and prior was Java E, because it runs for years, and they are sure that actually the there is no a huge danger on the horizon. So okay, this is interesting to know. And what's also interesting, I do the same in web standards in the front end, and I wanted to talk a little bit with you about the front end today. And it seems like per accident we are doing exactly the same. So you already mentioned the last time you have lit HTML, you are using web components. And I don't know whether you know that actually Apple, Apple Music?
No, I'm not the Apple guy.
Yeah, no problem. So you're a Linux guy or a Windows guy?
Windows.
Okay.
On my machine, Windows, but on the Surface, of course, Linux.
Yeah.
But Windows.
So there's an Apple Music app this is like Spotify. It's just the same, just for Apple. And this is a native app. And Apple released in November a web version of that. And it looks exactly the same, but it's in web. And they introduced a Vue web components. So it is built on web components, the entire app by Apple. And this, of course, caused a storm of articles. Yeah, web components are back or whatever. But not only Apple. So a lot of companies, meanwhile. This is like I tried to do some research and I found another references. Porsche and Volkswagen, SAP, Clear, and what happens with my other startups I coach? You choose the technology by accident, but the others, which we started with web components 2 years ago. I would say 2 years ago was not that sure that it will win, but right now they say, okay, thank you, this was the best possible choice, because again, the self-constraining. So they go to MDN, Mozilla Developer Network, if they have a question and they find the solution. This is more like engineering developer approach, and you are done. So now the question is, what you are doing in the front end. So is it also lit HTML web component, or what are you using?
What we are doing at the moment, we're just using web components from MDN and doing the rendering with lit HTML. This is more or less what we're doing.
But not lit HTML, right? Not lit element rather than just lit HTML, right?
Yeah, we're using only lit HTML, yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Perfect.
Because the components, many of what we are doing, and very often, let me say, we just read some data from the database and display them. It's often the case for reporting stuff. And so we have no real need for, because many of our components are read only with some buttons for drill down. So not too complicated, and so there's no real need to use lit HTML with its functionalities. And the few functionalities lit HTML would provide to us was also not a big thing just to develop. I think we have one abstract component, a class, an abstract component where we have which has 50 lines of code, which takes care about the binding of all the attributes.
Yeah. This is exactly what I do. So I always have my abstract element. I call it differently to the project. And this, I import the lit HTML there. And I have a method like, this is, I'm not sure about the name, about the method. The proper name would be render, but it collides with lit HTML render. So sometimes I call it view changed, or sometimes, re-render or whatever. And this is called by what? Sometimes by custom events. And sometimes by Redux. The question, are you using Redux or are not using Redux?
No, we don't use it. But we make some thoughts if we should introduce it. But I see no real added value for our applications to use something like Redux, because our components contains the logic and this single state in the application. So the component have its state and that's fine. But so to introduce Redux, maybe I don't do right because I had a lot of discussion with the React guys, which say without Redux you cannot build a powerful web application. But at the moment I don't miss anything and it works without Redux.
In one project we use React and without Redux, and it works also perfectly. So and we started with React without Redux, and Redux came later. I'm using currently actually Redux in one of my projects. And this is more complicated. So I have lots of writes. And what's amazed me, how well it works with web components as well. So Redux, what the architecture is exactly the same boundary control entity. So I have my web components, high-level components. It talks to a service. And the difference is you're always calling down void. So there is no return value. And the service just, talks to backend via fetch or not. And gathers data, and then creates the dispatch action, the Redux action. And and then there is a reducer which wakes up and changes the state in the store. And now it comes. What happens is just there is one single component which subscribes to the change events, and this is the abstract element, and this causes re-render of all components. So this is the cool part. So if you have the abstract elements, what you only have to do is, to subscribe the view re-render or view change to Redux, and you are set. So, and this worked perfectly but I'm writing more than I'm reading in my current application. In your case, I can imagine it doesn't make any sense. But the question is, where are you storing the state? Not directly in the component, I would suppose, rather than in a service, right?
Yes, we have service classes, but sometimes we have different kinds of components. Sometimes like a root component, or some where a page view is inside. Then you have a lot of nested components, and we developed it's a component where we call the context, and in this component we keep the state, and each component which are inside have access to the state.
This is a React-like architecture. This is like in React was the same. Like they call it dump component and smart component, I think, and the smart components had the state, and the leaves had just re-rendered.
Okay. So, and what we are doing for communication is just similar as you mentioned. Our abstract component has a kind of message dispatcher just to inform the context that something changed. And if this changed, the context just call for each nested components, please re-render the view. And this is done in, I think, 20 or 30 lines of code. So nothing so complex that we have to introduce a completely framework where everybody have to double check how it's working. And so for this was, for me, toolless functionality that we introduced a full, let me say, development stack like React.
React could be even reasonable, but the others are not. And I don't know, do you have a local build? No, right? You don't need any build locally.
You mean
NPM
packaging tool?
Yeah.
No, we have we don't provide any NPM packages. We use some for lit HTML, but this is something that we use for the build process. For this, we are not completely happy at the moment how this is working. For the build process, we just make some tests to use only ES6 modules without any build tools.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the moment we use Parcel to package everything, and in the meanwhile we have a branch just to check the stuff, how it's working if we use only ES6 modules. But on the first tests, the performance was slower, just to load everything. So this is something that we have to analyze why, because of it's not completely clear why it's because we're talking about 40% to load everything. Takes a bit more longer. So this is something where we think about just to change also to native ES6 modules without any builder, but we are still using Parcel. The reason why we do this, because of normally I would say it's working good, no reason to change, but we have the need for using more dynamic imports to load web components from a server and use them. And this is working with a dynamic import very well with the ES6 modules. But some of the builder like Parcel have problems doing this.
Yeah. Coming back to the communication between components. So in my current application is similar, but let's say exactly. So I had a table which can be edited, and this build a table because it was easier that way, and the rows. If you change a row, the row will throw or raise an event, custom event, dispatch an event, and this event is going to be received by the table itself. And this table then knows, what changed and changes the state of the store. So this is so I have a hybrid of your architecture and the So this is how it works and as well. And on the side note, I don't use Parcel. This is the main difference between us. I always use Rollup. So since I use the NPM tools, and I always use the ES6 modules. And now come back to the performance. The problem you probably get, you have a lots of recently we did some performance investigation with ES6 application, and it happened that at start at once it requested 150 files from the server. This was fine-grained communication, but this was everything. So. And of course, if at once you get 150 requests to your server will have to ready, to answer this. So you have to really think about threads and the request queue. So you have a lot of threads in place, ready to go. And And what you can do with that, this would be what I would investigate in your case. You could actually write a Jakarta service, delivery service with Servlet 3.0, read all the JavaScript files, and in advance put it to browser cache. And this should, change it other way around, because then if you do import, you not will go to the server, the browser fetches it from the cache.
Yes, this sounds very interesting, yes.
And I started with that. If you on my blog, like Servlet 3.0 GSF or whatever, I think I wrote a post, and if not, I showed it on the EHEX in Munich, so I'm not sure. But if, then I will rewrite a post. And I actually wanted to start an open source project, but at no time, with a servlet which just searches for JS files and proactively pushes them to the browser cache. It is like 3-liner, and you are done.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I think we should experiment a little bit with this.
Yeah, and you probably know prime faces, right?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah, and with they did it with prime faces, so they improved the performance of prime faces. If I don't know the version right now, but as Java E8 came out, so they came with Servlet 3.0, and prime faces did it. So they in advance pushed all the resources in advance to the browser, and they greatly improved the performance to comparing to the other prime faces. And this feature is from HTTP2, and if you use the feature, only then makes sense to use ES6 imports. But then the performance should be stellar. Without this feature, you have to use a build tool.
Yeah. Okay. So this we have to check, because but also if you push everything to the browser cache, I think the first load of the page, because for us it's exactly what you mentioned. You enter the page and we have 150 requests or JS files which are imported, and I think the first time we have to do to the browser cache, or do you mean to the files are cached? Then we have to think about how to update the files and so on if we have the new version on the server. I think this is something we have also to think about.
Yes. But I mean, you are in control. You are building an app. What you could do, you have the service worker, and service worker has access to the actual cache, so you can do whatever you like, right?
Yeah.
You can drop the cache, remove the cache. So actually, you are in the nice situation that you are controlling the environment. So it is more like, back then a WebStat app. So this is what we have the control, and we have exactly the same problems to know how to replace the jars, and yeah. But you could even rename if you have the servlet can rename the files, So you can introduce hashes or whatever. But having said that, we never use you always, as I started with the web standards a couple of years ago, there was no build tool, and why I'm asking you that is because developers really enjoy that. So if there is nothing locally, they can just start hacking with browser sync or without. There was nothing to set up, which is really enjoyable.
Absolutely. So developer experience using just browser sync. This is what we did in our parallel test branch. It's much better. So the local experience for developers, it's quite cool. But now for the build, if we double check this on the container, so was performance maybe was a bit slower, and I think I will double check this, and if we solve this, then I would also change to go to use only E6 modules. This is also, I think it depends, because we have no need for transpiling any longer for our system. So
yeah, this will be the more there will be more Jakarta-istic way of going, So this is like just ES6 modules. Another thing which can help you, I don't know whether you're aware of, this is another standard called resource hints. And what you can do, there are links called rel preload. And if you do this, you can force the browser to preload stuff in advance. And if you have like a login page or landing page, we do it in this page. So we know, in the next page, we need the application, so we can preload our stuff because we control the entire stack. And then the performance is even better. So if you search for resource hints, this can also help you. So I'm really curious. So in the next podcast, I will ask you what's the performance difference, but I would expect 100% better.
I hope so. Yes, I hope so. Yeah. But this just to sum up, this is working very good at the moment. But I think this is also working because of we providing a B2B application. So it's not so we know the browsers of our consumers. So we can just say using Chrome or Firefox, and if you have Internet Explorer, we can just say we don't support it.
Yeah,
That's a good thing.
but in our world, even with the internet applications, exactly the same experience. So my clients, so I show them, what's the name of the page? Like you can check out the features.
Can I use?
Can I use exactly? And they say,
Yeah.
look, for this feature we have 0.01 percent usage. So now is your decision. Should we introduce a crazy complex pipeline and just forget the browser? And with the introduction of Edge being actually Chrome, so using the Chrome engine, and Firefox is really great right now with web components. So there's actually, I don't know, do you have any issues with Firefox?
No, so far. So
Yeah.
we're developing on Firefox on Chrome, so it depends on the developer.
Yeah.
Our customers using Firefox, so everything fine.
Yeah, by the way, the developer experience on Firefox is amazing. So the developer tools is even better than on Chrome. Do you know the CSS grid, for instance?
Yes, I know. Yes.
Yeah, this is crazy good in Firefox, actually.
Yeah. Because of, normally I'm a Chrome guy, let me say. I'm using Chrome, but our UI developers using Firefox, and yeah, as I showed me also the performance charts. The Chrome developer toolbars looks a bit better from my point of view. So I have also to think about if I should switch to Firefox for development.
What you should do, you should switch to Firefox for 4 weeks and see how it goes. Just use Firefox for 4 weeks and then switch back. This is what I do frequently. I just, say, okay, this month I will just use Firefox and learn new stuff and then switch back to Chrome. And what does amazed?
Why do you switch back? Why do you switch back? If you are satisfied, why do you switch back to Chrome?
Yeah, because I'm not a product developer, so I join different teams, and if someone uses Chrome, I still have to help them. I cannot tell them, use Firefox. Okay, this is I need a knowledge in all the browsers, not just one. So this is my problem, but I also enjoy the switching. So this is why I use now Visual Studio Code and I use NetBeans and I use IntelliJ. I'm a little bit bored if I spend too much time with IDEs. So I'm very strict with the libraries, but less strict with my development environment. I like the change. I really enjoy the change.
Okay, cool.
What's interests me as well? You mentioned briefly that your developers, you had some React developers. So what do you, and what's the reaction to web components? So as I may imagine, so if a framework developer hears the first time we are not using any frameworks, you say, okay, it's impossible. This is a reaction from my projects. But right now, what's the reaction from the framework developers? Do they like the plain way of going, or they still miss the framework?
It's so we have two guys. Let me say one left the company.
Okay.
he's completely fascinated from React and he would like to develop React apps. And okay, the other one is which have a React background. That's quite cool. And he said he liked it very much, and he said it's also more easy because of what he was said about. We have so much small libraries in React where you can add another framework on top, and there's a approach and a pattern. And his opinion, it's much more clean now. So nothing where you have a double check if there's another library out there. You can just go to MDN and see what's going on. And the most time we find the solutions there, and then we can think about, do we have the need for another library or something else? Mm-hmm. So, but what I see is that React is very popular, and very many of the young front-end developers love to work with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, this is understandable. Absolutely. So React, to our listeners, if they will see what you are doing with web components, it is like React knockoff, right? It looks like React, but it isn't React. This is actually lit HTML with web components. So but it will behave like React. And if you look at the React Redux integration and what I told you, this is almost identical. So but React is more optimized, for. They have a new rendering engine, so if you're building games, for instance, you could build very easy games with React. It's going to be a little bit harder with our technology. It would be available. It would be doable, but you will have to think longer about that. So and the other guy left the company not because it was not doable, because he enjoyed React more, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was everything fine, and I said, okay, it was nothing that we was because if I can understand, if you say, okay, I love these technologies, and I say, go for it if you're not open. So I will not convince people that they have to do this. Mm-hmm. So otherwise they should have fun at work, of course. And if you say he is more happy with React, so then it's his choice. So, but I cannot. So from a company point of view, we will not change our UI technology every few months or something else. So this is not possible. And I still believe in this web components approach, and I like it very much because what we have, our need is this web components matched perfectly, I believe. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you're talking with young developers, they would like to test a little stuff. They would like to, if you go to a JavaScript conference, everybody's talking about React, and so maybe 70-80% of these talks are going about React. And then he would like to say, yes, I'm also a React developer. And he would also to introduce new frameworks, but we have no need for it. That's sometimes a problem. And then we have the discussion, why do you introduce this? Makes no sense. And this is also a little bit, let me say, this is a problem if we have always a discussion to throw away some libraries where we have no business need for it.
Yeah.
And
by the way, I'm absolutely convinced that web components and the web standards is the way to go. So you are extremely productive with it. And so why React is so popular? It is popular because, in contrary to Angular and the for instance, the React is used heavily by Facebook, so it's used by the entire team, really, really heavy, and they have almost no breaking changes. So that's the advantage. So you can rely on React. So React is almost like a Jakarta, so it's very stable. And what I thought about is if you look on the web, so the browsers get more and more compatible and faster. And what we already proved, not only we, but SAP and the other companies, that you actually don't have to use a framework to be productive. And what I'm thinking is, in one point of time, I would expect Facebook to drop React. Because Facebook only uses React because they need it right now to build, complex apps. But if they find out that without React, they can even provide leaner apps and faster apps, they will drop React. And then it's interesting whether the community will step in and take over React and maintain React as is maintained now by Facebook, because Facebook had resources. And this is what I see a little bit danger of React. So I already mentioned it several times on my clients. I say React is great, but this is a little thing which bothers me. So that in one point of time, I have to, because if you, the web platform, the web standards, they are advancing really, really fast. In one point of time, frameworks make absolute no sense. So what I'm absolutely convinced is that the frameworks make less and less sense every month. So this is my personal opinion. In one point of time, they make no sense. So you can use them if you like, but this is not about liking. It's like business decision, right? So this is what I see the problem with React. So you thought about that as well, or?
Yes, but from a little different perspective, because we're talking about the front end. From my point of view, I think you have to rewrite your front end every few years. So just because there are some new trends for user experience out there. And if you would like to have happy customers, you have to update your front end time by time. So our backend service, I believe, is stable. So we have not to change too often if it's working. But the front end, I believe, in any case, we have to rewrite or to change some parts to optimize every few years. So the question is for me more or less, if we say, okay, we go now with this technology, and let me say in 5 years, React is not longer maintained by Facebook, as you mentioned, as an example. Then we say, okay, then we take another invest and update also the user experience to the latest standards which are out there. So this is something, because I also don't know, maybe in 5 years, which is a new mobile device, maybe there are some new user experience controls. Maybe at the moment in the business, we don't use too much touchscreens. Our applications are responsive, but normally every user from us using the mouse as an input device. But this could change. And so at the moment, I believe I'm not investing to change too often from a management point of view, because of just to do is invest every few years. Why, if it's working? But thinking about user experience, I believe the front end has more changes.
Yeah. We had a discussion also brief last year in a project where the client asked me, for long-term strategy for web. And we had a long discussion, long workshop, and there were external developers. They proposed Angular. It's okay, sorry, but I wouldn't, say, Angular long-term strategy. I say, yeah, but, you have to rewrite the rewrite the front end anyway in one point of time, and then you can choose different framework. And this is now, if you think about this, what we are doing, we are just using the blank web technology. If a new framework is on the horizon, this framework will have to use exactly the same technology we are choosing behind the scenes, because ES6 is in the browser and ES6 is what runs in the browser. Of course, there could be a framework which uses Wasm, this WebAssembly, or Canvas. Yeah. This is, of course, always possible, but as long as we have DOM can be accessed by JavaScript period, and whether it is accessed by React or Angular, it is at the end of the day accessed by a framework. So, and now, with the knowledge of DOM and web components and web standards, you can actually very quickly understand whatever framework is on the horizon, because you have this is exactly the same. No, if you know JPA, you will understand Hibernate, and you will understand Eclipse Link very quickly, and even JDO, because they are similar. But if you will start with a crazy generator framework, I'm not sure whether it is that easy to understand. JPA, for instance. And so what it means then, we have the decision, because it's not like we can introduce the new stuff incrementally. So we can rewrite the front end just by making it look differently, add new features with the same stack. So exactly what we will do, we could rewrite the backend still using Java. But if you, let's say, would use Angular, and Angular disappears, now you have the problem, because you will have to relearn to complete another framework. Then this framework disappears, and then you have relearn completely to another framework. And I would say this is almost impossible to relearn quickly in a product development and ship something meaningful. It is great for consultants, but is really problematic for longer projects. What I do in this company, and even products, even worse. But with your approach, you can always decide, to use framework if you like. So you could actually, if you like right now, you can say, in this part of the app, I will use React, and the remaining part, remains web components. Why? Because web components don't have any virtual DOM. There's just, there's like, what's going on. But if we would invest now, let's say, in React or Angular, then you have a little bit understand more on what the framework is doing, where it updates the DOM. And this is different story. So I think this issue I have to take into account. If a framework disappears, how long you will need to become productive in the next framework, right?
Exactly, because when I started this company a few years ago, when I have the first ideas, I also developed them with Angular 1, which was quite cool. Because I think web components was not so, the browsers didn't support them very well a few years ago. And then also because I'm also open for using frameworks, so let me say so. But in general, at the moment, I see no real added value by using them. And that's the issue. So I think we are as productive as if we use a framework. So, and then if we have the choice, I would say no, then we go with the standards. Very easy. Exactly. That's the moment. But I think also sometimes if we have some, I believe, but this is always, if you have a technology stack, you have sometimes a problem with some little problems, but you have the same problems also with frameworks. So you have to spend time to solve some problems, to build up a workaround or something for some bugs. And you have this in all technologies. So we also spend sometimes additional time, because if we don't use a framework, which sometimes problems are already solved if you use a framework. But on the other side, some problems we don't have because we don't use these frameworks. So at the moment, I believe it's the right approach, but I also don't know, maybe in a few years something will change. And I believe, as you said, that we are on the basis from web standards, we have the best starting position if there are some changes on the market in a few years.
Yeah. And regarding the conference, so what I did is, it was in October, I was actually invited. I proposed a talk just for fun on International JavaScript Conference in Munich. And my talk was like effective development without frameworks. And as you can imagine, most of the attendees just attended talks about frameworks. And what's interesting, the room was completely full. And I just showed a little bit, web components, then lit HTML, and I built a small app, more and more complex, with grid, but no frameworks at all. And I expected, a huge backlash, because I never was on a JavaScript. I'm actually a Java developer, never was on JavaScript conference. And what happened afterwards, the people came to me and they said, this is amazing. They didn't even knew that you can build anything without a framework. And they were young developers. So the interesting part, most of the Java developers, JavaScript developers expect, framework first because they think it is impossible to be productive without a framework. And actually the feedback was quite good, which amazed me. And this is feedback. So what you could do, for instance, send your developers to a JavaScript conference with a talk and talk about your experience, and then it will flip. So then they will see, the developers, what we are doing is actually absolutely interesting, and we are cutting edge, not like building a legacy app.
But what you mentioned is also my experience, that if you're talking with about young developers, I believe sometimes they search wrong in the internet. Instead of using just ES6 standards, they're searching and find some pages for some workarounds, and then they implement it in some solutions where, let me say, in a jQuery style, where we have no need for using jQuery. So this is sometimes, I believe, I say always, please go first to MDN, try to double check the documentation, and then if there's no solution, then think about what we can do. Maybe it's necessary that we add an external library. And most of the time, so we are happy with this approach. But if you don't review the stuff, you will find many external libraries inside your product.
Yeah.
So with young developers, because I believe sometimes the search engine optimizing could be better for MDN.
Yeah.
For Google.
Yeah, that's true. The SEO for MDN, they should improve that. Yeah. And this is also not that known that MDN is the canonical resource of web standards that actually Google, Mozilla, Samsung, and who else? Actually Microsoft committed that the MDN is the canonical resource how to document web standards. What I forgot to ask you regarding the backend, you mentioned the last AHEX-FM episode that you are investigating Quarkus. So how this is going? So you're still keeping investigating, or?
Yes, we did some prototypes with it, but we haven't not yet in production. So for different reasons, because of a big workload. So we had some modules which are working fine, but we only tested it on the, let me say, the simple modules, just where we have JAX-S and CDI without any JPA stuff. Because at the moment we have also some key cloaks, so we changed this to MicroProfile JSON Web Token, because we had some key cloak submodules inside. So, but we did this for some modules. They're working quite fine, but we have also think about the developer experience, how to manage this in general. At the moment on our system, if you have the full platform, you have one Wildfly where we deploy for development just 10 WAR files, 10 web applications on one Wildfly for development. But with Quarkus it's a little bit different to run this all in parallel. This is something where we have to think about how to combine all the different approaches. If we have some approaches where we use traditional JEE development, like for example for the Camunda BPM engine, I'm not sure if we should be the early mover and try to let it run on Quarkus, because there's a lot of dependencies inside.
What Quarkus provides, they should look on it, is called Cogito. This is like BPM and like Drools, not BPMN. This is more Drools engine, so this could help you. It's a little bit different. Yeah.
Okay, because for the Camunda we use they provide a Wildfly submodule, and we're using this. But this is one of our services. But the most of our services are JEE applications without any dependencies. And for this, Quarkus is, I believe, the right choice. But then we have to think about, if you develop in the product and you have different services, what's the best approach to switch between one application you develop on a Wildfly application server, let me say in a traditional way, and two applications you develop with a Quarkus style. This is something where we have to think about to keep it still simple to develop our stuff inside.
Yeah, cool. And how fast your application starts? So all your modules, or is it? Within the Docker, where we have the native, where we compile real native with a GraalVM, I think it was much less than 1 second. So this was really incredibly fast. So that was cool. Okay, Quarkus, but right now with the Wildfly?
With the Wildfly, it normally starts on the server in 4 seconds, 3 to 4 seconds.
Okay. So a new developer never complaining about startup performance or deployment performance, so they're happy.
No, 3 seconds. That's absolutely fine. Yes.
Yeah, cool.
So if you have the interface we are running in debug mode, you have not to deploy all the time. If you only develop within a method, so the startup time is normally no issue in our development. Because if you have a lot of dependencies and it would take 30 seconds to start up the server, then I think it's a problem. But so normally the server runs all the time, and if we're not running in debug mode, we just deploy a single application, and this takes 2 or 3 seconds. We also started to remove step by step EGBs, the Enterprise Java Beans, because if we would like to go to Quarkus, it's not longer possible. And without the Enterprise Java Beans, the startup time is faster also.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. How much faster is it if you remove the EGBs and just keep CDI with transaction?
In some applications where we have around about 10 or 15 stateless session beans.
Yeah.
I would say it's because of the initialization time when you start the application takes a bit longer. So I have no real figures, but I believe at least it's 1 second faster the startup time.
2 seconds, you say?
1 second, I believe. If you have normally 3 or 4 seconds with stateless session beans, if you have this out, I would say 1 second faster.
Okay, this is
the normal development.
Worth investigating, so this is noticeable actually. So, okay. Very good.
But for the startup time, normally this second for development doesn't matter, let me say. And so this is something that we think about, but was the only reason why we tried to get rid of it for Quarkus, just to be also conform with Quarkus that we said where you cannot use the stateless session beans.
No, you're right. So there's a way to go. And in one point of time, the EGB is going to be eliminated anyway with CDI annotations because, there's too much overlap with CDI. And if Jakarta E9 comes or Jakarta E10, I think this will happen because we will have to keep, the platform leaner and leaner. There is overlap is always bad for complexity. So now the question is to you. So are you still, searching for developers? So would you like to hire more web standards or Jakarta or who you need?
Absolutely. We need front-end developers, JavaScript developers who have a passion for web standards. That is one of our pain points in HR. And for Java developers, and meanwhile, we have a good team, but we're always looking for new good people. We are always happy to have good people on board. But for JavaScript developers, this is one where we have more need for the moment. And of course, also business guys, but with insurance background and so on. But I think that's the wrong channel for discussing. Also, we are also searching for a product owner with insurance background. This is what we are. And we have some. But I hope that we are able to hire someone in the next few weeks. We're also searching for DevOps guys because of this full infrastructure. We have one installation on Azure Kubernetes services. It's nothing you can do beside your normal shop. It becomes also a bit more complicated. And for this is where we decided to hire somebody who takes care about all the development, which is very close to the infrastructure, and also to set up the system on Kubernetes and other things. So this is also a DevOps position where we're also searching for people.
Okay. So and where people can apply?
Yes, just at tech11.com. There's a link for hiring. So if they drop an email to jobs@tech11.com, I'm more than happy, yes.
Cool. So now what you should do is you should investigate the HTTP2 Servlet 3 optimization and whether it works better or not. I'm really curious. And then we should, I will invite you in a few months or weeks, depends on your success. And we can have a chat about DevOps and Kubernetes and this part of things, because we didn't cover that. If you like, talk about that. So now how to do CI/CD on Kubernetes, so we can chat about that.
This is also a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
The DevOps part. Yes, but what you mentioned, the Servlet 3.0 approach to provide system browser cache, I will try because it sounds very interesting. Yes.
Yeah, and this is really fun to implement. Really, really fun to implement. So do it. So you will see. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, and hear you in a few months.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Adam.